So the recording's on. Today's goal is to make this bubble animation using an array of objects, making a bubble object and then making an array of them. Yeah. Some announcements. Due this Friday are chemotaxis, which after today's coding demo you should be pretty comfortable with, I hope. If not, meet with me for office hours and we'll get you caught up. Also, you have a new coding bat problem set, another 10 problems for you to do. They are assigned and a step up in difficulty compared to the previous 2 weeks, just to get your array practice. There's also your weekly reflection that I've posted. Be sure to update those. I've fallen behind with grading them for this past weekend. Another reminder, AP test payment is due this Friday. Make sure to go to total registration and pay for your AP test. Questions about those things before we begin our demo? No. Okay, so to code up this bubble, let's see. There's some starter code in the next couple of slides and it gives you hints. For here, you want to notice that a bubble has its own color, its own size, its position, and speed. We'll be changing each of those into member variables. Bubbles wiggle randomly back and forth as they rise. That's going to be a member function, the rise function. And to make it a bit more interesting, large bubbles move faster than small bubbles, so their speed is dependent on how big they are. So we'll start coding this up a bit at a time. Let's start by making our bubble class. Inside the bubble class, you will have an integer for the x-coordinate, a float for the y-coordinate. That's because the speed is going to be a decimal sometimes, and we want to have that incremental change represented. Okay, as you see here, my speed. We need a variable to hold the size, my size. Color, as we discussed last week, can be stored in just one variable. And we have the skeleton for our constructor that we'll need to fill in. The method, where it rises and wiggles a bit, is the rise. And of course, the bubbles need to show themselves. So it's the stuff that we'll need to fill in. Let's make my thing longer. Right. So I pretty much typed out what was given in the slides. Next up, a good place to start is the constructor. Let's begin to initialize each of these variables, each of these member variables. So here we go. Don't redeclare them. You've already declared them up above. I'm just saving some time with the names here. All right, my x. Where does your x-coordinate start? X-coordinate will start at somewhere in between 0 and let's call our canvas size 400. So int math.random times 400 should be good. The y-coordinate, this one's a little tricky. We want it to start towards the bottom of our screen, so that's assuming 400 by 400, that's like 390 to like 410, let's say. So we have some bubbles that start a little off screen, and that's okay. Int math.random times 390, 420? Sure, minus 20. 410 minus 20? Yeah, that's better. So it's somewhere towards the bottom of your page. My speed, let's have that. Actually, we need to do my size first, yeah. So my size comes first. That's going to be some random integer. Math.random. Let's have them go maximum, something like that, right? We don't want our bubbles to be too small so we can't see them. My speed, that's dependent on your size. So let's divide it by 100. Where's the shortcut to make things auto-formatted? Edit, auto-format, Command T. There we go. My color, using the color function, we need to borrow some randomness, so I'm going to copy and paste this stuff. And I'll replace 400 with 255. 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Sweet. So we've just filled in the constructor for a bubble class, like so. As review, the x-coordinate starts off somewhere between 0 and 400. The y-coordinate starts towards the bottom. Positive, y grows positively downwards. That's why it's up in the 390 to 410 range. So far so good? Next up, let us code up the show function, and then let's make one bubble. Right? For show, we don't want the stroke to show. That's the outline. Fill, my color. That's the nice part about using the color function. Yes, all the values are stored into my color. What's weird, well, at least this was the case in P5, it's actually an array that's being stored, and in Java I have to investigate that. I'm not quite too sure how it works beneath the hood, but color does map it to one integer. So then we can do things like this, instead of putting like 3 numbers and 3 variables. Would it still work without color? Yeah, well, you need 3 numbers then. So that's like having R, G, and B like you did maybe for your lightning assignment before we showed you the color function. It can in fact work without the color function. It just saves us a little bit of time, a couple lines of code if we don't have it. So that's a good challenge for you all to try out. Okay, so fill my color, ellipse, so at the specified things, ellipse at my x, my y, my size. Now, with this given code, you should be able to code up, set up, and draw. Did I spell it wrong? Oh, I need another number, my size. There we go. Okay, so with this code that we've done so far, we can now code up a single bubble, and it should display to the screen at a random color towards the bottom of the page. Void setup, size, 400, 400, void draw. We have a gray background that repeats. And let's make that bubble. Bubble pop equals new bubble. Pop. Well, let's separate it, yeah? Pop equals new bubble. So then when we make it into an array, it's separate. Pop.show. Pretty routine stuff. Let's see. So we have a very tiny red bubble right there. And now I'll stop, play it again. Oops, pressed it twice. There, we have a larger bubble. Why did it start all the way over there? Did it mess up my y coordinate? Must have. Strange. I didn't fill in rise just yet, but looks like I messed up on my y coordinate. X, Y, where did I mess up? I don't know. Why did it start all the way up there? Something we'll need to debug. I expected it to be lower, but it's in the middle. And now it's all the way up there. Why? Oh, there we go. -20. Good catch. My random math arithmetic's wrong, like over here, right? So if I wanted 390 to, I should do a plus, yeah? Like 20 and then plus like 380 or something. Is that better? One way to achieve it, to be at the bottom. Yeah, there we go. Thanks. I mixed it up. I did it the other way. There we go. So it starts at the bottom of the screen now. It's kind of small. I should make it kind of bigger. 120. Sure. Unexpected token class. Without looking at your code, it's going to be hard for me to debug. You may have added parentheses here. You may not have. It needs to be blank. So maybe 20 and then like 70 here. Okay, but it's going to be hard for me to debug your code without looking at it. Okay, there we go. Next up, let's fill in the rise. And the slides walk you through these things. We'll fill in the rise. It needs to move up the page, yeah? So my y equals my y plus my speed. When you get to the top, that's going to be an if statement. We want to reset its position to be at the bottom, so it looks cool. It's a never-ending animation. If the y coordinate gets to the top of the page, which means it's less than 0, then we want you to reset your y coordinate to be somewhere here again. Yeah, bottom of the page. We also need the side-to-side motion, that random walk component of it. So the x-coordinate changes a little bit. Int math.random by, let's say, 10. No, 5 minus 5. Shoot. A little bit of randomness, right? So if I want like -5 to 5, I need to start with 5, start with 10, and then backshift 5. There we go. Don't forget my semicolon. And let's put that back in. Hopefully we'll see a bubble that rises across up the screen. Yeah, moving a little bit. A little too much randomness. Let's do maybe 4 and 2. I think I have a biased walk here. Do you see that? It keeps moving to the left more. We understand why? I'm like off by 1. But you see it always drifts towards the left, so I accidentally did a biased random walk here. So I think the change is changing this to 0, 1, 2, 3, minus 2. Yeah, change it to 1? Or should I change it to 3? Oops. It is minus 2. Yeah, the minus 2 is what I had originally, and I think it's always going to lean it towards the left, right? Because you have 0, 1, 2, and 3. You minus 2, suddenly the increasing, right, going to the left is just 1, 0, 1, -1, -2, right? So you always go back more. You always go towards the left more. 0 isn't positive or negative. So perhaps I should have started with an odd number to make it even. Now it's like left leaning. Yeah, 5. Now there's an equal amount for the left and the right. There's an equal probability of going right and left. So then it stays generally in the middle path. Cool. Good exercise. Hope that made sense. I think I want to change the opacity too. Let's try 50. This will change the see-throughness of a bubble. Mine doesn't rise for some reason, it only jiggles. Check to see that you have these things involved, that you're adding the speed to your y-coordinate, and also be sure that you're checking when it's off the page. That means it's less than 0. Y grows positively downwards, right? So 0 is in the upper left-hand corner, 400, 400's at the bottom of your screen, negative is above your screen. It goes down sometimes. But your speed is never negative, is it? Do I have some negative bubbles here? Did I do this wrong? My size plus minus 70? I think I did. It should have done plus 70. Oops. Now your big bubbles. Hold on. It is minus. Wait, no. I'm doing plus. I made the mistake again. So if you wanted to move up the page, right, it's minus speed, not adding. So this should be minus, that's why. This should be size 0, 70, yeah. So my y equals my y minus speed, because y grows positively downwards. If you add it to it, then it grows down the page. Subtracting moves it up the page. All right, any other questions? Spawn more bubbles. Yes, let's get to that part, eh? So currently we just have one bubble. Now we got to make more bubbles. That's the challenge in chemotaxis. And then each one of those bubbles, they move independently of one another. So we have to go to each apartment, knock on their door, say, hey bubble, you need to go do these things. So I'll leave in these lines as a reference to how we make one bubble, and we'll compare that to making many bubbles, an array of bubbles. Notice the use of square brackets in the declaration step. Now this is an array of bubbles, bubble array called pop. Instead of just doing pop equals new bubble, we have to enlist the help of a for loop. Pop.length. And inside, we go pop at position I equals new bubble. Okay. Now we have filled in each of those. Well, actually, hold on. Bubble array, pause. I've missed a step, right? I've made the apartment building, no rooms just yet. And now I have to go make the rooms. So pop equals new bubble. Let's make it of, like, right here, it has no length, right? So when I did pop.length, it would cause an error right here, because we didn't tell the computer like, oh, I wanted 100 apartment buildings for my bubbles. So I kind of went ahead a little bit. This step's really important. This one makes 100 apartment buildings. This one fills them all in. So let me demonstrate doing one but not the other. We should get an error. Yep, says that. Oh, not even there yet. Like that. That should already cause an error. Huh? Yep, null pointer exception, right? Pop.length is 0. We're trying to access something that doesn't exist, which is why we first need this line. Pop equals new bubble. Notice the square brackets. In block 1, I made the mistake of making parentheses, like this. That's actually calling the bubble constructor. And it says bubble int, taking in an integer doesn't work, right? Square brackets means arrays. And now we can do the final component. Use again a loop. Pop.length I++. Now, instead of doing pop.rise and pop.show, we have to go through individually. Pop at position 0. You will now rise. Pop at position 0. You will now show. Pop at position 1. You are at rise. Pop at position 1. Show. And I think that's all we need to get a bunch of bubbles to spawn to the page. Ooh. It's kind of funny at first. They look more like balloons. And then after a little bit, they start to scatter a bit more. No, they don't. I think my range of bubbles aren't varied enough, right? They're all a little bit too big. Perhaps I should introduce more randomness in the Y to make them a bit more spread out. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. And also have some smaller bubbles in there. So let's do times 30, 40. That's a bigger range, right? And then make them smaller. How do you make the bubbles look transparent? Okay, transparent is adding in this number. When adding like R, G, and B, right? Red, green, and blue. The fourth argument is opacity. So that's see-throughness of a bubble, which makes them look transparent. You can turn it up or turn it down. Like if I had it at 10, I think that makes it more opaque. Opaque is the opposite. No, it makes it even more transparent, so you barely see them to the page right now. Making it very high makes it more solid colored, I think. Think about it like a percentage. Cool. More questions? Ah.
Can you show your setup again?
Yes. Here's the setup. So in my demo, I still need to make the Y range a bit bigger because they're still like smooshed together too much and they move more like a bunch of balloons rather than a bunch of bubbles kind of floating up from the page. And you can modify these to your liking. Play around with the colors, the numbers, the transparencies. Build off this assignment for your chemotaxis due this Friday. Questions or comments? All right, so in this last minute, I do want to try to change the range so that it's bigger, yeah? So maybe 40, or change the size of my bubbles, make them like even smaller. I'm not going to post this in the Google Classroom because that's pretty much doing your chemotaxis assignment for you. You're going to have to go type this by hand. Mr. Simon and I are of the, like, you need to type this. I'm not going to post this. last time I did, and then I talked to Mr. Simon about it. He's like, "No, that's a bad idea." I'm like, okay, Mr. Simon, you've been doing this much longer than me. So refer to the video, refer to the slides, type it all up. Yes, I do think the range for opacity is 0 to 100. It's like a percentage. How see-through are you? 90% see-through? Yeah. I guess now that we have the movement stuff, you can make it 400, 200, like that. Now some like start very spread out. Or maybe my resetting should be a bit better than that, right? Because like the bubbles that start and reset all together, they kind of get chunked together at the very bottom. So modify it as you like. It is 12:25. So that's the end of my demo. For this Monday class, it's short.